All right, so in this video, we're just going to go over some examples of how to calculate midpoints between two-dimensional points. Right, so here in this first example, so I'll go ahead and draw us a little rudimentary picture real fast. So let's say we have, here's our XY Cartesian plane, and we are at 16 by 20. So there's point A, right? And point B is at negative 26 by positive 36, so a bit higher. So we'll say 36 is there, right? And negative 26 we'll say is about right here. Okay, so there's point B, here's point A, right? We're looking for the midpoint. Somewhere in here is our midpoint, right? And the way that we're going to do that is by simply utilizing a basic formula. So midpoint in two dimensions is calculated by simply doing each dimensional midpoint. So you take the x midpoint and the y midpoint. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what I mean. So x1 plus x2 divided by 2, so that's 16 plus negative 26, right? So 16 plus negative 26 would be negative 10 over 2. And then now we're going to do the y midpoint. So 20 plus 36 divided by 2, that would be 56 divided by 2 is 28. And I'll tell you what, I'm not going to skip that step. I'll go ahead and write it out. So I said that would be 56 over 2, right? And that means our actual simplified midpoint is negative 5 by 28, right? So our actual simplified midpoint would be at negative 5, so right about here, right, by positive 28. Okay, and we see that that's right smack dab in between points A and B. Even though my picture's kind of crappy, it still ends up working out. Okay, so my final answer for my midpoint simply comes from literally my x midpoint, comma, my y midpoint. That's all we're doing here. We're doing one-dimensional midpoint 2 times, one for each dimension. All right, so let's do another example. So now let's do example 2 here. Okay, so I'm looking for the midpoint again between points A and B, right? And that's what I'm going to do on all 4 of these. That's simply going to come down to negative 37 plus negative 15, all divided by 2, comma, now my y midpoint, negative 2 plus negative 7, all of that divided by 2. Okay, so negative 37 plus negative 15, that's going to be negative 52 over 2. Negative 52 over 2 now. And negative 2 plus negative 7, that's negative 9 over 2. And we get our final answer of simply negative 26 by negative 4.5. And that would be my midpoint between point A and point B. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, so again, same formula. That's just going to be x1 plus x2 all over 2. That's my x midpoint. And then my y midpoint is going to come from y1 plus y2, all of that over 2. Okay. All right. So then we just plug in. So I can go ahead and hit Control Divide and make a big fraction. That's going to be negative 126 plus 40, all of that over 2. So my x midpoint is simply negative 43, right? And then my y midpoint, I do the same thing, Control Divide to make a big fraction, negative 103 plus 23, all of that over 2. And my y midpoint is simply negative 40. Okay, one last example and make sure we've really got it. Go ahead and use pink here, because why not? Okay, so x1 plus x2, all of that over 2. That's my x midpoint. Y midpoint is going to come from 18, so y1 plus y2, all of that over 2. Okay, and again, you can just chuck it in the calculator real quick. So control divide, we're going to say 42 plus negative 12, all of that over 2. My x midpoint is simply 15. And my y midpoint is going to end up being control divide 18 plus 30, all of that over 2, right? And that's simply going to be 24. You didn't really need a calculator for these, but it's always good that I show you in the video, like, how would you input this stuff, just in case you're absent or whatever. Okay? All right, so that does it for 2D midpoint. Also a super easy concept to do. It's just about staying organized and carefully plugging in your values. If you have any questions over it, though, obviously come find me. Goodbye.